Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Tony Shen. I'm back with another FL Studio stock plugin tutorial. If you're new to this channel, this is basically a series where I make beats only using stock plugins from FL Studio and other easily accessible sounds. The series is more tailored towards beginners because the idea is you don't need $500 to spend on Omnisphere just to make fire beats, right? Now today, per request from one of my subscribers, we're gonna make a snot type beat. And I'm super excited for this tutorial because today we're actually going to work with a sample. Now if you heard some of Snot's music before, you can kind of tell that he uses a lot of like realistic strings and like sampled, almost like classical type music, right? And you can't really achieve that with just, Flex or Citrus or other like stock FL Studio VSTs. So that's why we're going to jump straight into it working with a sample. And just to make it really easily accessible for all of you guys, I've decided to include the download link in the description for the sample as well, so you guys can do this beat with me from start to finish and work together. Right before we get to the start of this tutorial, if you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. It really means a lot to me, and drop a like. I really love sharing more and more tutorials with you guys, and your support really means everything. So with that being said, let's get straight to the video. So just to preview the sample we're gonna work with. Now I got this from like a pretty obscure like vinyl collection site. Educational purposes, and I do not intend on distributing this, so yeah, don't come after me. But basically, we're only gonna take one small loop from this entire sample. It's a pretty long sample. You guys can feel free to like chop up other parts, but for the sake of this video, we're just gonna chop up one sample, and you guys can do whatever you want after. So how do you chop up a loop from this sample? First, you want to get an idea of like the project tempo, like how fast you want the beat itself to be. So if you listen to Snot's beats, they're usually a little bit more upbeat, to like 100 to like I don't know, like 108. So 104, that's like a solid tempo to work with. So yeah. Now let's actually set the snap to like none, so you can freely move around the grid. And the idea is you want to get a section of the sample that you can loop back and forth. Right, so how you can do this is by counting, and just by counting the beats and listening to the sample. So let's do this together. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So right here, so up to here, that's like 4 bars, right? So that's a 4-bar loop because we went from 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way to 4, 2, 3, 4. So now let's use this little razor tool here and just snip this section, because that's the start of a new loop, and then we can just get rid of that. So now we chopped up the end. I've kind of noticed in the beginning there's some like empty space as well. So what you can do is just cut that out as well. And now if you play from the start to the finish, it should be a perfect loop. So now that we have a perfect loop, now we have to fit it within the grid, right? So what you can do is, so how do you fit that within 4? So now we actually have to fit it within the grid of this tempo, because if you start adding drums to this, everything's gonna be off time. So what you can do is make sure you go, so select audio clips, right? And then make sure stretch mode is enabled, and then you can just stretch it to the 4 bars. Simple as that, right? Now when you stretch it, by default, FL Studio does a resampling mode. So what that means is when you stretch the length of a certain sample, it actually changes the pitch as well. So if you listen, it changed the pitch, right? And you don't want to do that, because then it's really hard to actually tune it to a certain instrument or like a bass or whatever. So what you want to do is set this mode to auto. So essentially what that does is it reverts it back to its original pitch. Pretty cool, right? So that's actually the entire melody. That's the main melody we're gonna work with. Let's actually put it into the mixer track and see how it sounds. So when working with these like vintage samples, it's what's lost kind of in the translation of like when you're downloading back and forth, or maybe this is an MP3, and all that compression, like it kind of loses some of its warmth feeling. So what you can do to bring that back is to add some like tape saturation, or like some type of like a vintage like radio type effect to it. Right now with FL Studio, it doesn't really, unfortunately, it doesn't really come with a lot of VSTs that could achieve this effect. So I like to recommend a few free VSTs that are, again, free for you guys to download, and it's optional, right? This step is kind of optional. It adds a very subtle difference, but just to make it really realistic to snot, what you want is a tape saturator effect. Right now, the plugin that I would recommend is Isotope Vinyl. It's free for you guys to download. Unfortunately, I can't run it on my computer just because my operating system doesn't allow it. So I'm actually going to use a different plugin. However, I am going to link Isotope Vinyl and other additional free tape saturator plugins for you guys to download in the description, so you guys can kind of apply the same ideas that I'm doing, right, with the VSTs that I'm using. So what I'm gonna use is Sketch Cassette. Now this is only like $20 right now, and it really does the same thing as Isotope Vinyl. So what I'm doing is like just making it sound like it's coming out of like a vintage like tape cassette, right? So this is really the part you want to play with, the flutter and the wow. So with the VSTs that I'm linking in the description, they're all gonna have this function. So again, just apply the same effect. Kind of gives it that vibe, right? Okay, so up next, we'll add a little bit of reverb just to bring it out a little bit more and make it a little sound a little bigger. Okay, up next, just EQ it. Because this is like an actual sample, like a recorded sample, you are going to have some low ends present. You want to just get rid of that because it's going to interfere when you actually add a bass. So now we have our first melody. Now, if you just repeat this through the entire beat, you could do that. It might get a little bit repetitive. So what you can do is to actually use the same sample and then pitch it up an octave and then use it as like a different function within the beat. So what I mean by that is, first you want to make this unique. So that way everything I do to this first pattern doesn't apply to this pattern, right? So now you have two separate patterns. And then let's control L here to link it to this mixer track. So what that does is it gives you the ability to kind of like add different effects to it and make it sound different, right? So first thing you want to do is pitch it up an octave. Once you have that, I'm gonna play them together actually. So this is gonna add like a subtle difference when this portion of the sample comes in. So kind of gives it a little bit more higher end, like upper mids, right? And again, we can add the same tape saturation effect. Again, this is kind of optional, but it does sound a little bit nicer. And then use the EQ to kind of cut out some of this stuff because it doesn't sound that pleasant. The idea is just to make this like almost sit on top of it and just be very, very wide, and then add like a new element when it comes in, right? So you want to almost like drench this with reverb and delay. And then I also want to add a delay just to give it, again, like more substance, right? And then almost, you can even make it a little bit more wider. So use a stereo enhancer and then add some stereo separation just to bring it out. So when you play these two together, it just adds a new dimension. Let's turn this down. Now let's work on our drums. So with the drums, we're going to use Tony Shen Slap Pack Volume 1, which is in the link in the description, so you guys can download it and then work with the same drums that I'm using. And if you guys have been to this channel multiple times and you're getting kind of sick and tired of this drum kit that I'm always using, Tony Shen Slap Pack Volume 1, I have another drum kit coming out for you guys that's free. It's in the works, but you guys will get it soon. so don't worry about that. And we're gonna use this 808 just because it's a little short and stubby, and it's like it works really well with this beat, right? So first thing you want to do is maybe you want to normalize it because it just makes it a little louder, right? Second thing is you want to tune the 808. So Control E, that opens up Edison. Go to this flag button, detect pitch regions. Make sure that the note highlighted here says C, right? It's the same note as what's highlighted in blue here. So if that's at D, just right click D, and then that would tune it to the correct root note. So because that says C, we're just gonna leave it at C. Second thing you wanna do is maybe you wanna enable your envelope so that when you release the note, it doesn't leak into the next note and just make all your bass all messy and stuff like that, right? So with that being said, we have our 808 prepped. Now let's go into making the 808 melody. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, Tony, what is the key of this sample? Please tell me. I'm not gonna tell you because I don't know, all right? I don't know what the key is. What I do know is I have 2 ears that I could use to kind of like figure this out myself. So what I like to do, how I like to match my 808 to the sample is very simple. All you have to do is listen and then sing the exact same notes that the sample is playing and then match the 808 pitch to the sound of your voice. So boom, boom. And it helps if you're like, if you work with a higher octave on your 808, so otherwise like if it's too low, you won't be able to hear the pitch. So boom, right? Okay, so that's a C, right? That's an E. Turn the metronome on to like give you a better bounce, right? So that's another E, right? And then maybe bum, 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 bum. That's a D. Bum, 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 bum. You can actually pitch this up just to like. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, and then let's pitch this to a desirable pitch, and then maybe pitch this up, and then. That's the 808 melody. You see how simple it is if you just learn to use your ear more. This could literally apply to every single sample. Like you'll never have to struggle with this type of stuff again. So up next, let's add a clap. Let's add it here. Add a open hat or a close hat. And then you can just fill 2 steps. Just add a little quick stutters. You can get more creative with the hats, right? I'm just giving you the basic idea. Let's add an open hat. Here. kick. It's a hard kick, right? And then with the kick, it's okay if you just follow the same pattern as the 808. So just Control C, Control V here, and then because most samples and root notes are by default set to C, just make sure that all the notes are placed on C. Otherwise, you're gonna have like varying pitches, and it's not gonna be pitched with the original sample. So. And then maybe add some more perks. Rim. So now let's throw all of these sounds into the mixer. These drums are pretty much mixed for you already. The only thing I would do is maybe level some of these sounds to desirable volume. So turn the bass down just a little bit. And I would turn the clap up a little bit. Okay, so now all you have to do is arrange it. Yeah, all you have to do is right click here and then split by channel. So now you'll have all of these patterns by themselves, so you can arrange it a lot easier. And yeah, now you just have to, you know, arrange them however you want it. Now arrangement is completely up to you. Like you could there's so many ways you could do it, and it really depends on like how long you want your beat to be and the type of artist you're working with, or like, you know, if you're, it really depends, right? So I'm just gonna do this really quickly and then, yeah. Okay, so that's the whole beat. Really quick arrangement, but yeah, that's it. Now I'm gonna preview the beat, but before I do that, if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button and drop a like on this video. It really means a lot to me, but here's the beat.